Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel BNB Daily Spoiler. Steffy goes nuclear. Shocking ultimatum to Taylor.
Steffy threatens to cut Taylor out of the family, and Sheila senses something is wrong. Taylor and Deacon gave way to their inappropriate sentiments while Ivy told Dylan to fill up with petrol and leave Los Angeles. Taylor is antsy at the Cliff House. She looks out at the surf and remembers Deacon telling her how much he loves her. Deacon calls and says he has to see her. Neither of them could sleep last night and desire to be in each other's arms. She claims it is yet possible to persuade him to reconsider. No way, he replies. She warns him that this will blow up his life. He says it is time. He wants a better relationship with his children, but he can't have one with Sheila. She gets off the phone as Steffy arrives. Steffy enters, and her mother recounts what occurred. Taylor says she and Deacon want to be together. They can no longer suppress their sentiments. Steffy panic out. This can't happen, she declares. Steffy accuses her of putting herself and the family at risk. Finn had to fully shut Sheila out. She informs her mother that if she continues to socialize with Deacon, she will no longer be a part of the family. If she picks up with Deacon, Sheila will pursue them all. If she becomes engaged with Deacon, she will be forced to exclude her from the family. At Il Giardino, Deacon discovers Sheila decapitating a fish. She tells him he is her catch every day of the week. They discuss their connection, and she is shocked at how much she owes Taylor. He begins sipping water while she tells him about their great life and how he has changed her. Deacon claims they entered each other's life at the opportune time. She claims he helped her change for the better. He's confident she's a different person today and would never revert to her former habits if he wasn't around. Sheila wonders what's actually going on. He wants to express how much she means to him. Sheila assumes he intends to tell her something else. Steffy issues an ultimatum to a terrified Taylor, as Deacon tries to break things up with a cleaver-wielding Sheila. Steffy Forrester had never been good at sitting idle when someone she cared about was in jeopardy. It didn't matter if the danger had the apparent face of a scandal or the quiet disguise of a terrible judgment. She moved. Moving had always been her solution. Go to the person, close the distance, dispute, hug, and plan. Today she moved like a lady who had seen enough to know what a little spark may become when it meets careless air. Taylor's place smelled of chamomile and ancient books. Steffy thought it was inappropriate for a location where judgments about allegiance and risk were made to feel like afternoon tea. Taylor had offered Steffy the kettle and a chair by the window, but she had not taken them. She paced, hands on her hips, as she used to do in the design room when a seam wouldn't lie flat. "Tell me," Steffy demanded, using her words as a weapon. "Tell me she isn't here. Tell me you did not allow her back into your life." Taylor's face tightened. There were lines around her eyes that were barely visible a few years ago, but they had grown deeper since this all began. The community talked, the tabloids fired salvos, and Taylor felt the weight of judgment like a hood. She had not come to Los Angeles to be scrutinized. She had come to rebuild and, for once, be permitted to live a peaceful life. "Steffy, Taylor started, then stopped herself. She had rehearsed different versions of the truth, defendable, compassionate, and full of rationalization. None of them felt the appropriate size. Deacon implored me to keep the door open. He stated he was done with scams. He swore he was going to avoid repeating his mistakes." "You believed him," Steffy interjected. Her voice was filled with painful incredulity, making the word little and threatening. "You believed him when he promised the same thing twice. And there was, what Taylor? What if he is correct, and she is the problem? What happens if Sheila shows up with a knife? Have you not noticed what she has done?" Taylor lowered her eyes. She'd read the police reports. She'd heard the hospital stories. She had witnessed people heal, burn, and hold hands in cramped public spaces. She had also fallen, naively, entirely humanly, for the notion that individuals may change. "I did the work," she explained. "He's been showing me." "Showing you what?" Steffy demanded. "Showing you the man before he ruined people, or the man who makes promises and then disappears when times go tough. Taylor, you know the stories. You know what Sheila is capable of." Taylor's mouth quivered. She had originally come to Steffy because the Forrester house resembled a home. That illusion had now been muddied by fear. The possibility that the family's children would witness violence they had never asked for, the possibility that Finn's trauma therapy would clash with everything else, and the very public manner Sheila's name sent chills down the community. Taylor had to decide what was more important, the man she loved now or the children and friends she also loved. You weren't around when Sheila was at her worst, Steffy replied gently. Perhaps you saw the notion of Deacon rather than the disaster. Perhaps you encountered a good dude, but I saw what she could achieve. She'll accept whatever doorway you offer till it's gone. You have to make a choice. Steffy had offered an ultimatum before. Love in their world frequently comes with a demand. Change your title, choose a side, or leave. But this one had a different tone, sharpened by a fear born of tattered, near-constant horror. Steffy did not want to punish Taylor. She requested a perimeter. She desired safety pins, locks, and individuals who would stand between Sheila and the people she adored. Taylor's breath tightened. The dilemma was clear. Taylor had to pick between Deacon and everything that came with his convoluted past, or her inner circle, the Forrester family, and the fragile protection they could provide for their shared loved ones. It was businesslike and heartbreaking. You can't make me, Taylor began, then paused. Pride is one thing, and accountability is another. She closed her eyes and imagined the face of someone who would be injured if she picked incorrectly. If I walk away from Deacon, I will be leaving a man I adore. If I stay, I put others in danger. It's impossible. Steffy's throat clenched. It is not impossible. One of us must be brave enough to do the right thing for those who cannot protect themselves. They sat for a long minute, like statues forced into a tableau. Two women with survival stories, both aware that the other's decision may change their lives. Taylor's hand moved to her mouth. Give me one day, she finally said. One day, I need to speak with Deacon. No decision until I've heard him out. Steffy's response was terse. You have 12 hours. While the Forrester women exchanged ultimatums, Deacon Sharp engaged in his own quieting practice. He despised ultimatums. The term scratched against him like sand. Yet lately life had been nothing but lists of tasks that demanded him to be greater than his past. He promised Taylor a future full of tiny pleasures. Coffee in the morning, being someone's dependable, and he'd meant it with the stubbornness that had once been both his greatest and worst quality. He had chosen, in the whiteness of dawn, to end things with Sheila. The reality was simpler in his head than it was to carry. Sheila's hold on his life had been aggressive, manipulative, and dangerous. He loved Taylor and wanted nothing more than to be the guy she deserved. That required drawing a line in the sand. He found Sheila in a tight kitchen of an apartment that smelled of stale onions and the kind of cheap air that makes recollections feel filthy. The flat was hers, and she ran it like everything else, as an island of drama and weak defenses. The blinds were partially closed. She looked up as he entered, and there was nothing but a breath between two individuals who knew how to hurt and be hurt. Sheila, Deacon stated. He maintained his voice level. It's finished. I adore Taylor. I want to be with her. I want a life without your drama. Sheila's expression shifted to one of enjoyment. She casually laid a knife on the counter. Deacon's pulse stuttered and quickened. He knew she was deadly, but he never expected the sharp edge of it set in the center of the table as a boast. Do you think it's so simple? Sheila remarked, her voice low as gravel. Her hands were steady, but in the manner of a woman who has practiced control her entire life. Do you believe you can walk away from me and the past, as if you were changing shoes? Deacon gulped. He had rehearsed his speech, but not his fears. I have to try, he responded. Taylor gave me a chance. I cannot put her at risk. I will not put her at risk. Her laugh was not one of delight. It glittered like cut glass. You chose a woman who will dress you in a fine suit and conceal your ugly background. Fine. Be a man. She slowly rose from the chair, her movements theatrical. When she got to the counter, she did something that made his stomach drop. She took up a butcher's cleaver, which shone in the dim apartment like a small, horrible promise. For a brief moment, Deacon's entire past, the battles, the resentments, the minor deeds that had previously escalated into something worse, merged into a single glaring fear. Sheila has always utilized the drama of danger to keep people in place. The cleaver was the most theatrical prop she had ever chosen. "Put it down, Sheila," Deacon murmured, attempting to take calm breaths. "We aren't doing this." "I can't do it." She took a step closer, the blade's edge pointed carelessly to the ground. "Do you think I won't make you stay?" Her tone was a menacing quiet. "Do you believe you can tell me to go, and I will stand aside?" Deacon's heart pounded. He knew Sean, the courts, parole, and the distance required for redemption. He had been in settings where being a man entailed taking hits and apologizing. He had never intended to terminate a scene in a doorway with a knife between them. He also knew that Sheila's theatrics were frequently a ruse. She valued control more than blood. However, if you play bluffs incorrectly, they cut. "Listen," he replied cautiously. "I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to be honest. I can't continue doing what I used to do. I'll get help. I will contact counselors. I'll do everything. I'll show you. But I cannot tolerate your aggression. I refuse to let it harm Taylor or anyone else." For a brief moment, Sheila's eyes softened. The ache of a woman who had once been fiercely loved and then hurt, and Deacon considered walking away. The softness hardened into something like resolution, and she lifted the cleaver, which gleamed dangerously when it cut the light. "If you leave me," she told me, "there is nothing that will stop me from making you regret it." Her voice was a map of past threats. Deacon took a hesitant step back. He realized he had to get Taylor out of the apartment alive and make a humane effort to protect her from whatever Sheila might do next. "Don't do this," he urged. "Please, Sheila, let's go to counseling. You do not need to make this a crime scene. We can salvage whatever is left." She gazed at him as if she were choosing a costly indulgence. Then she chuckled, a brief, unpleasant sound that implied nothing would ever be simple. "I'll give you a choice," she explained. "Choose, Deacon. Choose now." Before Deacon could speak, the apartment door flew open. It was Deacon's voice on the phone. He had emailed Finn earlier in a cold-blooded act of obligation, and Finn had arrived with the muscle and serenity that had once been his job. Finn and two policemen stood in the doorway, looking serious. "Sheila Carter," Finn stated gently but forcefully, causing the knife to slip from Sheila's grip and crash on the counter. As the officers pushed nearer, Sheila became rigid, as if her stage had been shut off. "No!" she shouted, the scream of someone who had lost control. She went for the cleaver, but a cuff wrapped over her wrist as one officer moved more quickly than she thought. Deacon felt a peculiar sense of relief that made him dizzy. The last thing he saw was Sheila looking at him with a countenance that had once convinced him of intimacy, but was now distorted with uncertainty and terror. The policeman recited her rights, and the apartment was immediately filled with the mundane details of police procedure. The cleaver was deposited in an evidence bag. Finn placed a blanket across Deacon's shoulders in the same manner you would wrap a youngster who had nightmares. "You did the right thing," Finn stated calmly. "You've departed. You've called. You did not respond to violence with silence." Deacon nodded, but it was a subtle gesture. He thought of Taylor and feared how she would react to the news. Relief, of course, but also anguish that someone she loved had been so near to violence. He was relieved that the incident had not resulted in any bloodshed, but he knew the recovery process would be lengthy. Back at Taylor's, news spread quickly. When Deacon arrived, a little frightened and cleaner than the morning, Taylor burst into tears and wrapped herself about him, as if she wanted to keep him grounded. "Are you all right?" she whispered, fingers in his hair. Deacon's voice quivered. "Sheila's been taken," he said. Finn was present. "The police arrived. I informed her I was leaving." "She's lost it," Taylor sobbed, relieved beyond words, yet guilty beyond reason. "I should have told you," she whispered. "I should have demanded you do something sooner." "No," Deacon responded. "You were correct to give me a chance. I had to make a choice. I did it for you." Taylor stared at him for a long time, comparing the guy she loved against the man who had previously threatened her. "I love you," she confessed, "but Steffy gave me an ultimatum." Deacon's skin became frigid. "What did she say?" "She told I had 12 hours to decide." To cut everything that puts the family in danger, or I have to choose. Be with Deacon even if it means losing our place here. Taylor's eyes were two worked stones. She appeared smaller and incomparably braver all at once. Deacon took her hand. Tell Steffy that I snipped the tie. Tell her that I don't want Sheila back in our lives. Tell her I'll do everything it takes to keep you safe. Taylor nodded, but the fatigue on her expression indicated a deeper calculation. It will not be sufficient for her to hear it. She needs to see proof. She needs to feel it. We all do. Deacon placed his forehead on hers. Then I will prove it. I'll begin each day with therapy, check-ins, community service, or whatever you and they like. He looked to Finn. I will comply. I will do the work. Finn's voice remained steady. We will help. There are programs. There are boundaries. But, Deacon, this ought to be permanent. If you return to past behaviors, you will lose more than trust. You will lose everyone. The hours that followed were filled with the quiet dance of repair, calls to lawyers, counselors, and those who stored emergency plans in drawers. Steffy texted Taylor, saying she'd be over in an hour, short, brisk, and final. Deacon sat in the living room, trying to be still, as if that might reveal the change he wanted to create. When Steffy arrived, she was the same lady who had reprimanded and protected in equal parts. She looked at Deacon with a hardness that was rooted in history, not revenge, but love for people she had safeguarded. Tell me what happened, she inquired. Deacon described her the entire scene, without drama, his goodbye, Sheila's cleaver, and Finn's entrance. He didn't embellish. He didn't want anything to be misunderstood. Steffy listened, jaw clenched, eyes steely. After he finished, she sat down and glanced at Taylor. You can't have both, she explained politely. I want you safe. I want to keep the children safe. If you choose Deacon, I can in good faith provide you the same access to the family. Taylor's face wrinkled. She's arrested, she explained. We can all go to court. We can present your plan. The Deacons agreed to help. He has cut contact. Steffy nodded slowly, the ultimatum fading in her thoughts like iron in a furnace. Proof matters, she finally said. The first step is to declare your intention to be different. The rest is about demonstrating it every day. The story did not conclude with a single response. There were court dates, bonds, and a detective's painstaking but essential investigation. There were also minor, sensitive victories. Deacon in counseling, Deacon submitting to checks, and Sheila confined in a holding cell while professionals decided what to do next. Taylor and Deacon learned the effort of constructing something whole from the ruins of the past. Steffy gave Taylor conditional permission to be close to her family, but there would be boundaries, monitoring, and honest reports. Trust would be earned, not given. It was not a neat moral, nor a tidy redemption. Instead, it was ordinary and difficult. Ultimatums met with commitments, threats addressed by law rather than private bargaining, and the laborious effort of mending a tattered life. That night, as the house fell silent, Steffy sat by Taylor's window, watching the streetlights bloom. I don't want you to pick me over him, she added softly. I want you to pick what will keep all of us safe. Taylor gripped her hand. I won't choose danger, she said. I'll choose what keeps the children, and us, breathing. Outside the hazy lights, the world maintained its usual brutality and occasional tenderness. Inside, a group of people who had been tried by the worst of human nature heroically opted to try again. Hearings, registrations, and therapy meetings were all scheduled for tomorrow. Tomorrow, they would cry and laugh. But for one sticky, human moment, they chose a beginning rather than an end, which, in the city, can be as good as a miracle.